So yeah, we're looking at the White Lotus Sutra. These really unusual teachings that go beyond the rational mind. And last week, Paranita handed me a proper conundrum. You might remember in her talk last week, she was describing a point in her story where the Buddha's preaching to a vast assembly of disciples. And they all promise to keep preaching the sutra forever. And at that point, a vast number of beings come up through the cracks in the earth. Bodhisattvas, enlightened beings, come up through the cracks in the earth and the Buddha announces that all these enlightened beings, all these bodhisattvas, are disciples of his. And some of these beings are really old. You know, they're old men. And the disciples wonder at this. How can this be? How can it be possible? And they say, you've only been teaching the Dharma for 40 years. It can't be true. How can it be true that these old men are disciples of yours? It's like a young man saying that all these men are my sons. Please explain, we don't understand, they say to him. Other people might doubt you, not us. We don't doubt you, honest. We don't doubt you, but other people might doubt you. You need to explain to us. You need to explain to us how this can be. And the Buddha says that he, in explanation for this, in this kind of trick of time that seems to be playing out in this part of the sutra, the Buddha says that he is eternally enlightened. He says, I exist forever in the world. I behold all living creatures and set them all inspiring, until when their hearts are full of longing, I appear. To preach the Dharma, I am always on the divine Vulture's peak and in every other place. And I can imagine them all going, what is he on about? What does he mean by that? And that is kind of our conundrum for tonight. And I'm going to be giving us lots of things to ponder. First of all, I'm going to talk about that idea of time and space and how we can kind of try and understand that. And then I'm going to give 3 ways into how we might think about the eternal Buddha, the present Buddha. So we're going to look at 3 possibilities of how we might come to understand it. But first, I'm just going to go through this idea of I exist forever. Even the grammar of that sentence is something to ponder. I exist forever, not I have existed forever, or I will exist forever. I exist being in the present tense, and forever implying a time frame that includes the past and the future. It's not pin downable. So from the very start, we can see that this is a teaching that we can't work out with our rational mind. And that's just the White Lotus Sutra all over, isn't it? But perhaps we can begin by saying that even if we can't get our heads around an eternal Buddha, at least perhaps the teaching is suggesting that there is always an active force for good in the world. Perhaps it's that. There's an active force for good in the world, a compassionate force that wants us to grow and develop and know the Dharma and practice the Dharma always. And we know that in his lifetime, as a human being in our world, the Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, the historical Buddha, was definitely a force for good. We know that he was a human being who was born and lived for about 80 years, about 2,600 years ago. And we've lots of evidence that he was a force for good. He said, I teach suffering and the end of suffering. Somebody asked him, what do you teach? And he said, I teach suffering and the end of suffering. And he spent his whole life dedicated to relieving suffering, teaching and helping thousands and thousands of people. He did that. He definitely did that. He was a positive force in the world that wanted beings to develop. And millions of people have benefited from his influence and teaching since his death. So in a way, I exist forever in the world is kind of explainable, because we can say, well, we've got his teaching, the Dharma. We have the descendants of his followers who continue to teach what he taught. His influence and his active force has definitely come down to us tonight in Sheffield. Sitting here right now, we're here because of him. An active force in the world. But he didn't say that his teachings will exist forever, because actually that depends on human beings, doesn't it, to teach them? And we don't necessarily know that we'd always have that. The sutra says, I appear to preach the Dharma. I am always on the divine Vulture's peak and in every other place. So how are we to understand this? Is it a metaphor? It's probably not literal truth, is it? I mean, the physical body of the Buddha is actually on Vulture's peak. But I have been to Vulture's peak, and it really feels like that. You can really feel the presence of the Buddha on that Vulture's peak. You know, you feel, my God, his feet have probably been exactly where my feet are. And that is, you know, you kind of think, God, is he here? I exist forever in the world. Is it like God was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end, amen? You know, is it a bit like that? I exist forever in the world. Sounds like something or someone out there, outside of space and time. Something to ponder. But in order to ponder effectively, we need to have right view. If we don't have right view, perfect view, if we don't have that, then our pondering will take us down rabbit holes. We need to understand right view, or you could say a dharmic perspective. We need to have a dharmic perspective on our ponderings. Because if we ponder the idea of existence forever without it, we could end up going round in circles. So there are big mistakes deep in the mind that we can do absolutely nothing about. There are the big mistakes that we all have deep in the mind. We are, in the way that life is ordinarily lived, in the grip of some big mistakes. It's not our fault, we're just wired like that. We make a big mistake about time. Our perception of time is that it's linear. Our experience of time is that things change as time passes. And it's convenient and very helpful to have this, so that we know when to go to work and when to meet our friends and that kind of thing, and have a watch and know how long your talk's going to go on for. But the fact of time itself arises out of a deluded consciousness in the grip of another big mistake. The mistake of the separate me in here and the separate you out there. The me in here and the not me out there. Chandrakirti, an enlightened master, I'm not sure when he lived, but this is one of my favorite quotations from him. First, conceiving an I, we cling to an ego. Then, conceiving a mine, we cling to a material world. Like water in a water wheel, helplessly we circle. I bow down to the compassion that arises for all beings. And there's your key word, compassion. When we have this right view, when we see things from a dharmic perspective, we realize that we really see, if we have this clear view, that compassion and love is right at the center of all of this. That's why I call the talk Glimpses of the Present Buddha, Glimpses of Perfect Love. Compassion that arises for all beings in the grip of this big mistake. From that mistaken point of view of me in here and a not me out there, we then need a thing called time, in which the experience of me and not me unfolds. Now, this is deep in the mind. We can't go at it straight ahead. We can't, kind of break this open by just saying, oh yeah, that's true, isn't it? Oh yeah. It doesn't happen quite like that. That's why we practice. So it's just something we need to know about. We need to have right view. Einstein actually proved that time isn't a fact anyway. Science even doesn't believe in linear time. The truth is that the me in here and the not me out there is a big mistake that we just can't help. There actually is no separation. There is just a profound interconnection and no sense of time in the way we think of it. Reality as a profound interconnection seen by the Buddha and described as pratityasamutpada is outside of time and space. And all there is arisings. There aren't even things that arise and pass away. It's hard even to say that there are arisings, because that implies that there is a thing, and there isn't. There are arisings in an inconceivably vast web of interconnectedness that doesn't have a past, a present, or a future. And the notions of past, present, and future are just made up constructions, redundant in an enlightened mind, irrelevant in an enlightened mind. Now is a relative concept. It needs a then, but there isn't one. It's just arisings. So our ideas of a separate me, in here, out there, just you and a separate not me, and our ideas about time are deluded and wrong. Those common sense ideas about what we think of as me and mine, and our ideas about time are completely, totally limited and limiting. We have to expand our minds beyond what we think of as common sense, change our minds, and start to see things differently. And then we might start to understand even a little bit what it means by the present Buddha, the eternal Buddha. But we do have glimpses below, above, outside, the rational, the common sense mind. And it's not a traditional list. It's just kind of 3 ways I've thought of that we can, hopefully, at least one thing will resonate with you as an experience that you might have had of the present Buddha. So the first one is this idea of being in touch with something. See, the something is in inverted commas. It's just something to ponder. All of this is just something to ponder. Have I experienced this? So in touch with something, what's the something? The nature of reality? Just words, awareness, you might like that. You might like the nature of reality as a phrase. You might like awareness. You might like the presence of a greater wisdom. It isn't embodied. It's a deep knowing. Have you ever had the experience of coming out of a meditation and the world looks brighter and more connected? Nothing externally has changed at all. It's the same. So if you go into a shrine room, say on retreat, and come out again an hour later, it's the same garden. But the trees look like they're full of jewels. And the flowers look like they're made of light. And the people you're with look wonderful. And you suddenly have, and it does feel sudden, a much bigger perspective, a vast perspective. And it can feel like there's no difference between you and the leaf. And everything is perfect. You just notice the movement of a leaf on a branch or the beauty of light falling over a field, and it's perfect, just as it is. And the thing about this experience is that if it resonates with you, that it doesn't deny the truth of suffering. It's not like you're blissed out and your suffering's over there. In that state of mind, everything is there. In that state of mind, the truth of suffering does not cancel out the truth of that perfect moment. And it's perfect. Because it's arisen out of the web of interconnectedness. In that moment, there's no me in here, there's no separate you out there, and that's what makes it perfect. It's arisen out of the nature of the way things are. It's not arisen out of me and mine. It's experienced as outside of time, and it feels like the truth. Some people say it feels like God. And I can really understand that. It can feel like that. In that mental state, we're closer to the way things actually are. But it can't last unless you're enlightened. We don't hold it, and we fall back into the mundane way of seeing the world, which keeps us separate and limited. But we never see the world quite the same again. We remember that. We know it happened, and it changes the way we live. Obviously, we're still deluded, but not quite as deluded as we were before, because we've seen something true. And I've had moments when there was nothing, there was no space between me and that leaf. It was the most beautiful leaf I've ever seen in my life. It was, my perspective was enormous, vast, full of love, just bursting with love. And then it went. But I remember it, I've never forgotten it. And lots of, quite, I wouldn't say lots, but several examples of that, always on retreat. So from then on, if we've had an experience like that, we're never quite so convinced by the notion of a separate me. The world becomes connected and live, and we're part of it. Profoundly connected in a way that only an enlightened mind can fully understand. But this is a truth that can't be intellectually understood. It has to be experienced. But it's always available to us in every moment, the present Buddha existing forever in the world. If that's your way in, and it might not be. So another way in, that would be an experience that comes out of being on retreat, perhaps out of meditation, out of being quiet and silent in nature, maybe on a long walk in nature. You've been practicing in doing your meditation, you've been coming to the Buddhist center, you're practicing the precepts, you know your values, you go for a walk in nature, you ponder, you look, and what arises is connection. And you might resonate with that, or aspects of that. So we feel like we're in touch with something, whatever that is. So the next way of thinking about the eternal Buddha, the present Buddha, is the call. It's not a traditional list, it's what I've called the call of the present Buddha. Have you ever been struggling with a problem that you just can't get your head around? Something that seems really insurmountable? And you go for a walk in nature, you connect with the deepest values, chant a mantra or the precepts, and remember who you are, and suddenly there's the answer. Lots of nods. This is interesting, isn't it? Something to ponder. Were you ever drawn to a Buddha figure and not known why? A mantra. There's somebody who, in our Sangha, who has always, since a child, loved the Avalokiteshvara mantra and didn't know what it was, and used to sing it as a teenager and had no clue what it was. And only in the last couple of years has known that it was the Avalokiteshvara mantra. That kind of thing, or a picture that you've seen and you kind of go, what is that? Or a place in the world that connects you with something that you can't quite explain, but that is good and expansive and opens you up. Something that goes dong in your experience, something that really goes boom in your heart, but you can't quite explain. Have you been called by the Buddha preaching from the Vulture's peak? We have, this is going to be quite a confession. We have regular order, when you're an order member, you have, you go on order gatherings. And so, it seems a lot to me. The order gathers together. And I never want to go. I never want to go. And it's not because I think, I won't have a good time. There's something that I just never want to go. And I always go. I just go. And if I don't, there have been times when I haven't. It could be because I've been ill or leading a retreat but I never want to go, and I just go. And a couple of years ago, and it's always fine, and it's always really worth it, but it's like I'm not thinking to myself, oh, I'll go because I'll enjoy it when I get there. That just kind of switches off. I just don't want to go. And a couple of years ago, I thought, I'm really going to look at this because it was really puzzling me. How come I always end up going? Lots of people don't go on them, but I always do. And I never want to. And there's no pressure to go or not. But there's loads of reasons why I don't go, want to go, but I go. It's like I'm dragged there by a really strong force that I don't seem to be in control of. And I asked Dharma Mai what they thought about that. And she said, sounds to me like the Dharma Niyama at work. The Dharma Niyama is something to ponder. Perhaps it's a way that the Buddha calls from us from the Vulture's Peak. So thanks, Melissa, for me thingies. So I'm not going to go into the detail of what's called the 5 niyamas. I'm not going to go into any of the detail. I'm just going to concentrate mostly on that, but I'll just do a whistle-stop tour through what they are. So the 5 niyamas are orders of conditionality. So they're 5 kind of natural laws or patterns that govern different levels of reality. Okay, so we've got the laws of nature, like gravity, the weather. We've got laws of biology, like genetics and reproduction. We've got the laws of the mind, like how mental states arise, psychological stuff. We've got the laws of karma, how actions have consequences and determine our future experience. And we've got the order of the Dharma Niyama, which is a transcendental spiritual set of conditionalities. It's the unfolding of spiritual awakening, how enlightenment arises, including the Buddha's enlightenment. So we don't need to get hung up on separating out our experience. We're just going to go for the spirit of what the Dharma Niyama might be. It's something to be curious about, to be interested in. If, like me, we have this experience that seems to call to us or like pull us in a way that could be felt as if it's coming from outside, we might be experiencing the Dharma Niyama. We can experience it as extremely personal. It can feel like the presence of a particular Buddha or Bodhisattva. It might be like my experience of being strongly drawn to something that is kind of feels bigger and more expansive than our own little ourselves. It kind of it can go against your conscious wishes and preferences, but it could be a strong sense of direction in the Dharma life, for example. When you walk through the Buddhist center and you've come home, you know you've come home. And you know you're going to be coming here every single week and you've just got that feeling. Is this the Buddha calling you from Vulture's Peak? When you join a community, or you volunteer at the center, or you become a mitra, or you ask for ordination, and it's a strong sense of a deep and sudden knowing. It could be a really huge sense of relief in your meditation when you kind of, you've kind of got the strong sense of your, like, oh God, yeah, this is true. Oh, phew. Oh God, phew. I've found something that's true, and it feels like a huge sense of relief. A sudden seeing of an aspect of the truth, and you've got your eyes wide open. So imagine somebody deeply engaging in meditation, ethical living, and studying the Dharma for many years, and one day they have a profound insight, perhaps a glimpse of non-self or something. And it shifts their whole perspective on life. They didn't make that insight happen by force of will. It arose naturally out of the conditions that we put in place. It's not random, and it's not psychological. It's part of a spiritual unfolding. This could be the Dharma Niyama at work. So there's ethical practice, there's conditions put in place, and something arises out of that isn't mere psychology. It's like seeds sprouting, but what grows is of a higher order, the universe responding to deep spiritual practice. beyond personal control. This is, could this be the eternal Buddha calling to us? It reminds me a bit of what Bodhinaga was talking about a few weeks ago, when he said the Dharma life involves shifting loads of muck. We have deep integration and then an unfolding, being receptive to the truth of who we are and who we've always been. So the third and last, perhaps potential glimpse that you might think, oh yeah, that's something I have experienced, might be the third one. Reaching up and reaching down in inverted commas. Everything's in inverted commas. So when we get ordained, we're given a figure to meditate on. And in some of the meditations, we actually become the figure for the time of the sit. Again, no in here, no out there. And I want to talk about my experience of Tara before I was ordained, and then what happened at my ordination. So Tara is up there. She's on the, can you see that big collection of enlightened beings up there? She's on that tree there. She's on the left-hand side. So you might have heard people talking about making a connection with the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas that we see all around us. What does that mean? What does it actually mean to make a connection with these Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? I had a beautiful picture of her. I had a statue, a rupa of her, a shrine dedicated to her. I chanted her mantra regularly. I did pujas dedicated to her. I read about her and learned everything I could. I learned about how she came into being. I learned how to draw her seed syllable. I did retreats at Tara Loka dedicated to her. I had strong dreams about her. I reached up to her, what you might say as reaching up. Reverence and devotion is so important in our Dharma life. Dr. Ambedkar said, morality is not enough. The Buddha's Dharma must be sacred and universal. And we make the mistake of thinking him as being a political being, which of course he was, but he was extremely devotional. So if we think back to those previous ponderings before, when I was talking about in the first couple of ponderings, those moments of beauty and connection that we have on retreat, or when we're walking in nature and we realize that we're in the right place when we go to the Buddhist center, when we've realized something in our study and we see something that's true, these are all doorways into this practice of reaching up. You feel like you can work. I feel like I can bow to those trees. When I'm standing in front of a beautiful tree and in all its glory in nature, and I just sometimes feel like I could bow to those trees, those flowers of light, those moments of unexplainable knowing. I feel like I can bow to them in gratitude for being alive. Getting dragged against my will to these order gatherings of beauty and connection. I could cry when I think of that. And I can bow to it in gratitude. And this was kind of the conditions, these are the conditions that led to my connection with Tara. And I grew more and more devoted to her and continued to receive her blessings in my life. So when I went to Akashavana to get ordained, I was convinced it was going to be Tara would be the Buddha that I would have as my visualization practice. But when I got there, I tried to bring Tara to mind, and Padmasambhava was just like, nope. And I was like, oh, where's Tara? Oh, where's Tara? And he was like, nope, nope. It's like, nope, 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 it's me. And when I was deeply concentrated in meditation, I said, well, what about Tara? She's going to be really jealous. And he said, no, it's me for the big one. And without being told, I knew they were his qualities I needed to face the death of ordination, and I was his. So this reaching up and reaching down is about qualities in the universe of enlightenment that we have in us. So we're looking, we're reaching out into this the connection that we might have with these perfect beings, because they have the qualities that we have too. We have these qualities, we have them, and we reach out and they reach back, in inverted commas. It's all in inverted commas, and it's all something to ponder. Is this, am I talking, is it all really silly? Does it make any sense? What does it mean to you? You just have to kind of work that out for yourself. So the qualities of enlightenment that these figures have are all in us. And if we resonate with any of them, it could be that that's because they are resonating with the qualities that we have. They are the qualities embody the active force of this principle of enlightenment in the world. So Padmasambhava was absolutely everywhere at Kaushavana. There were times when there didn't seem to be any separation, no edges. There was nothing that wasn't him. And he wasn't a conscious choice for my sadhana. So this is this kind of, is it coming from outside? But if we think about there being no outside, no inside, it's completely irrelevant when we know the truth of the way things are, then what is going on with that? Only you can work that one out. So the universe responding to deep spiritual practice beyond personal control. The Buddha arising out of no me, no mine, no time and space. And in her wisdom, my preceptor gave me Padmasambhava and Tara, just in case. So, time to finish. It's 10:02 now. Because a friend wrote to a friend, and so I don't want to say who they are because it was private. But, so the principle, the Buddha principle, includes everything outside and everything inside. The Buddha is the worshipped and the worshipper, the devotee and the object of devotion. There is nothing at all that isn't the Buddha. So that's something to ponder, isn't it? So have we experienced this as the presence of a greater wisdom? These moments of presence when we're connected to something bigger than us in those moments of beauty. Have we heard the call of the present Buddha in those moments when we seem to be having experiences of something bigger than us, the Dharma niyama breaking through into our experience? Or do we ever reach out, reach up, reach down, reach in, reach out to these qualities of enlightenment that we have in ourselves, that we see in these Buddha figures? Just really, really encourage everyone to, wherever you can, get yourself on retreat. And create retreat conditions as often as you can. I do realize that lots of people who can't get on retreat, I was one of them for many years. But we can do what we can. We can come to days here. We can come to meditations that are here, where we're meditating together in great numbers. That can be the conditions that we need to allow this to arise. Working in teams at the center, being with wise friends, all of these practices create the conditions for us to be able to hear the call of the Eternal Buddha. Thank you. That's it.